All right. Hey, folks. Today I am interviewing Madeline Dietrich, who has been my friend. We have been friends for a very long time. We both grew up in Southeast Pennsylvania and met when we were in college at Pennsylvania College of Art and Design. And it brings me a lot of joy to have a conversation with Madeline today. So I was wondering, Madeline, if you could introduce yourself to the students and yourself and your overall creative practice.
Hey y'all, I'm Madeline. I am a queer, non-binary, multidisciplinary artist and cultural organizer. I went to FIT and got my BFA in 2016, and my art practice kind of moved from being solely 2D to more like events based. I had always participated in curation and events, but really took more of an events focus after I graduated. And since then, I've been working in non-traditional curation, community engagement, and queer nightlife organizing. Um, and yeah, happy to be here to chat today. I
Well,
think that covers all of the hyphenate
yeah.
things.
Good introduction. Thank
Oh,
you.
and this is Honey, who is my little rescue Chihuahua familiar. So she's going to be right here because it's very cold in Philadelphia right now.
Could you tell us how your practice as an event organizer emerged? Because you talked about starting as a 2D artist and then
Mhm.
moving towards more events. So yeah, can you take us on that journey?
Yeah, I had a roommate when in one of my first apartments in New York who had a live painting like events collective, and I was kind of like roped into helping out with those events, which ended up being like a really fruitful friendship and relationship. And kind of like a core experience because I saw the different ways that you could experience art in an events context. So the art series was called Art Battle, and now it's kind of changed and become something else. But at the time, it was a way for like fine arts and graffiti art for there to be like a bridge between that. And often it was a competitive like art event where people would go head to head and have a certain amount of time to complete paintings, and there would be DJs and different live acts like during intermissions and things like that. Um, yeah, it was like very New York, very grassroots, very underground, and it was just a cool group to be a part of. And I think it kind of planted that seed for me to start doing my own kind of multidisciplinary events. And yeah, when I met you and we were living in Lancaster, there was not a lot happening that we wanted to go to as far as like queer events, parties, nightlife. So I think we just started collaborating, like our group of friends there, um, to try to make things happen that we'd be interested in going to, you know. So I think a lot of that is really due to like the folks around me and being in a really like um what's the word? Like just like really fallow ground for uh people to collaborate and join forces and create things and make something happen. And then when I graduated, I also just felt like my friends and I were spending so much money and time on applications for juried art shows, and I just wanted an alternative to like these capitalist art world systems that we could do ourselves.
Awesome. Yeah. would you be able to talk a little bit about your visual art practice
Mhm.
and how the visual art influences the events or vice versa? Like, is there a way that the events that you put on, yeah, influence your more personal, private studio practice?
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, a lot of that kind of like symbiotic relationship between artists and like just making sure you're around people who are open to that and encouraging and want to talk about art. But I mean, I think it's all very interconnected with me. It's hard for me to separate. I mean, they're separate practices in a way, but I think they also feed into each other a lot because with my events currently and since a while, but especially now because of the political climate, I try to make them like as safe a space as I possibly can, um, for queer folks to just experience a little joy and come together and enjoy like art from different disciplines and performances from different disciplines. And I feel like with my mixed media and painting practice, um, it's also like a search for a form of safety and kind of like caretaking in a mental health sort of way. Um, and they're also very place-based, like my paintings and photographs, I feel like incorporate a lot of the environment around, whether that's like a natural environment or like the low lighting of a club. Like I want that to inform like the color palette or the mark making. And yeah, I think to me it's all about that like sense of connection and trying to capture that.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I do feel like a lot of the students I've worked with are always like, everything I do is so different and are can get fixated on how different the different things they do are. And I'm always like, no, it's all related.
Yeah.
They all
Well, I
influence.
think it's also with like, I'm probably gonna, if you want to start a counter for how many times I say capitalism being the problem, like you can start now. But I
Yeah.
think under capitalism, like we're all taught to just focus on the thing that, or just focus on one thing and have that be the engine and that define us, like whether that's in our personhood or as an artist. And we're not really encouraged to try other mediums and things that may not be as fruitful as like the thing that we're quote unquote good at. But yeah, I think it's always interesting to experiment, and that's always gonna feed into whatever your main practice is.
Yeah, totally. This feels like it might be a good time to go through your slideshow. Would you like to just,
Yeah.
yeah, move through them and tell us,
Sure.
yeah, share? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's behind me right now, right?
Yeah.
Technology. Okay. So this first slide is um I kind of wanted to show like the scrappiness of these early events. Not to like talk down on them. I think they were really like beautiful and necessary, but um, I think looking at it with 2026 producer eyes or organizer eyes, there are some things I would do differently. But I have a lot of love for the early stuff. So this uh is an example of an event that we did at a brewery, and we were able to really like take over the whole space. And you can see that we set up a little lounge with these barrels, and there's some small sculptures around, and I think it was really cool to be in Lancaster and in Philadelphia specifically, in it was the 2010s, right? Yeah, the 2010s. It wasn't as built up as it is today, and we were really able to access spaces like a brewery or an armory or an old theater and kind of do whatever we wanted. Um, and yeah, that sense of freedom was really eye-opening. and fun to just like play with a group of artists who had the time to experiment, you know. Yeah, this is more of those events. Um, this is from an artist, Josh Grapera, who does these amazing, like, sort of world building um, works. Uh, and yeah, I feel like the next step was moving towards like, I think it's kind of like been a balance of traditional and non-traditional for me. But this was an event that we did in a gallery in New York, and it was, it just felt like a different way to exercise those muscles, to put it on in like a more formal context. And I remember we like agonized over the artist statement and having that printed, and probably like three people read it, but we had it. We did it. And yeah, I after I graduated, I spent some time in Philly, and I left New York after 6 or 7 years, and I was really over juggling everything and working all the jobs and, doing art and doing events all at the same time. So I relocated to Leipzig, Germany, which is like an hour south of Berlin. And I found a group of artists there and was able to start another sort of collaborative event series. And this was like the first event I did over there. Um, you can see there's some linoleum cuts here and a soft sculpture. And yeah, I have some mixed media photos behind this drag queen. Is that the side it's on? Is it this side?
That side, yeah, that one.
So my works are in the back of that, and I try to keep it pretty balanced. I don't put my work in every event that I do, but when it feels like appropriate, I try to include it. But yeah, this was also this drag performer's first show, and it's been really great to be able to give people that opportunity of their first show, and yeah, just trying on different mediums. Yeah, this is more of that show. We had some kind of etchings. And then this is a better look at the mixed media photo work I was doing at the time, which was, yeah, another kind of experiment that I worked on in that theme for a few years. This is more of those parties. I ended up leaving for visa reasons and coming back a few times, and um, yeah, I was really lucky. I felt really embraced by the community there, and it was a place that I was able to really try things on and see what worked, and take some experience that I had had in New York with more commercial events and higher end fashion events, and kind of utilize those skill sets there. Um, And yeah, it's always been important to me to highlight artists of color, especially in a place like Germany, but really everywhere. I think it's important to make sure you have a balanced lineup. And, I think it also brings people from different backgrounds together in the space and like offers a dialogue and a sense of connection that you wouldn't usually get. Like maybe someone was here to see my friend Sandra, who's DJing with her tape collection, or someone else is here to see Rashid, who's giving this drag performance, and maybe those two people would not have met or talked, if they hadn't come to this event. So it's nice to give people that opportunity. This is another really talented performer over there. And there's my painting. So yeah, I think one of the questions you had was about um, travel and its impact, right?
Yeah, yeah, I wanted to ask how like living in several different countries have influenced your practice from, I mean, and even just like Philadelphia, Lancaster, New York,
Yeah.
time on the West Coast, and then also Germany. And
hmm
where else did you live? Wait.
Albania, a couple of stints in Italy, a little bit of California,
Mhm.
and then yeah, I've gotten to spend some time in Seattle, um, with you, and also with some like a residency opportunity you connected me with, and yeah, I applied to do a gallery show at the collective that you're involved with, and that was accepted and super exciting to come and do that too. But yeah, I think um well, when I was in art school in New York, I had the opportunity to go to Florence for a semester. So that was I didn't grow up, my family's pretty working class and I didn't grow up traveling at all. So I didn't see Europe or anything over there until I was like 23 or 24 and in this program. And it just completely like cracked my world open, even though New York is pretty international. Um, Obviously, yeah, it just like really turned my expectations for like quality of life on its head. And, I was kind of looking around like, you guys live like this out here? Like, like I can have this much time to like just think about art and, explore and see all this beautiful architecture and history. And, it was something that really impacted me and really kind of like lit a fire under me to continue to pursue that. And that was part of why I left New York because felt like I was kind of on a hamster wheel there, and it can be really difficult, like budget wise, to travel when you're in New York. So I kind of felt like, okay, if I stay here, I'm not going to really get the benefit of experiencing other perspectives as much. So I made the decision to like sell all my stuff and move and yeah, just go for it and try to make a life in Europe.
And then, yeah, like, so being in these different places, like, um, what are different things that you've picked up in different locations that have influenced your, the events that you put on?
Um, well, I think there's the common thread is like, there's not a ton of opportunity for queer folks like anywhere.
Mm.
Um, so just being able to give people a place to gather and a place to experience like different kinds of artists and perspectives, um, is something that I felt like was interesting to do everywhere. But, there's also like of course, there's a different vibe with each place. So you kind of have to know culturally what people would expect as far as like music, or maybe like when I came to Germany 10 years ago, everybody was like, we are so tired of techno. Like, it's so nice that you're having parties that have things like disco or hip hop or, whatever different DJs I was booking at the time. And, I think I just wasn't that into techno also.
Yeah.
So
True.
I kind of selfishly doing that, but then, I think the important thing is like listening to the feedback. And if everyone had said, where is the techno? I'm not coming back to this party, then I'd book some techno DJs or whatever. And now it's kind of swung the complete other way, where now like techno and electronic seems to be like in the forefront culturally. So that's like primarily what I'm booking in the US. So yeah, things kind of swing back and forth that way. But yeah, I think like the environment informs like my 2D work and my events work. Um, and these are some pictures from a residency I was invited to do when I was living in Leipzig. And yeah, it was another really beautiful big gallery space, and I was able to show some photos, and I made this mixed media mural with painting and photos from some of the events. that I'd done to that point. Um, and yeah, this picture is a little installation of like recycled
Mhm.
flowers at the tram stop, and I think it just kind of like speaks to, I don't know, there was more of a community feeling there that I experienced and a lot of activism happening, and um yeah, that was kind of like the audience that I was catering to. Um but I think, yeah, the like colors and textures of places definitely end up in my paintings as well. Yeah, this is more of that residency, and um, this was actually in 2020, so we did have, it was a lot of German artists, but there were a few people from Canada and other places in Europe, the UK, but I think I was the only American because like the travel ban had started. So it was definitely an interesting time to be in a residency. I feel like everything was so unknown, and it was helpful to just have like a new group of people to experience it with. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask about the events that you organize, and I've always really appreciated the combination of having visual art on the wall and then having a DJ and having drag performers. And you were actually the first person that I ever saw a drag show with. So you've opened me up to the world of drag, and I love it. I was wondering if you could talk specifically just about that as a medium and yeah.
Yeah, I've always loved drag. I feel like when I was like 12, I found like a VHS of Rocky Horror at our local library, and I was like, what is this? I need to know more. So it started pretty early for me. And I feel like, yeah, in the 2000s, it was more like scrounging for that sort of culture, and it was really more of like a subculture at that time. Um, and obviously with Drag Race and kind of like the commodification of drag has made it more mainstream, but I think it's still like such an expansive medium, and I think people are quick to dismiss it as less than a lot of the time because of its roots and because and specifically the Black roots and like the voguing and ballroom community. I think it's easy to uh dismiss that as like frivolous, since it's more of like a femme art form, which, not all drag is, but I think that's like the major public perception of it. Um, but yeah, I think, like I was saying before, maybe it's really important to bring it to people who wouldn't necessarily walk into a drag show, whether that's because they have some kind of preconceived notion about it or because maybe they are on the margins, and uh, not sure about their own identity or gender. Um, so I think it's really great to just put people in a space that, they might be the biggest drag fan or it might be their first show, and just to make sure that it's a welcoming environment for everyone is really important to me. Like I totally understand the importance of like a women only or a BIPOC only, queer only events, but I personally don't like to draw that line in the sand because I want people who are questioning or unsure to be able to walk in and feel comfortable and not feel like they have to assume a label just to like get inside the event, and I think seeing like the full scope of what drag can be can also help you like be more expansive about your own gender. So I think that's why I've always felt it's like important to include. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
in Leipzig, when I first moved there, I everyone I met was like obsessed with Drag Race, and I couldn't find a drag show anywhere in town except like this one
Huh.
kind of terrible drag bar in like the commercial part of the city. Um, and yeah, I encouraged a couple of friends who were already kind of performance artists or big personalities to just like give drag a try. And then they became like the two main performers at every event I put on. So yeah, it's another example of like trying things on. Like it's a good thing.
Yeah. Aw. So just to put like a timestamp on it, we're recording this on Monday, February 9th, and you have an event coming up on, is it Sunday?
It's this Sunday. I have a flyer right here. Is
Ooh.
it backwards? No, it's
Oh,
not.
it's gorgeous.
Technology.
And since you are, I mean, you have this ongoing series called Heaven, and you're
Yes.
also just in the midst right now,
Mhm.
organizing this event. You're a week out. Could you tell us a little bit about just where you are, with that, or what's going on in your life right now as you're organizing this?
Yeah, now we're in the home stretch. I feel like a lot of event planning is very like front loaded. So I'm just like glued to my computer or my phone, um, texting and calling people, trying to see, like gauge people's interests in bookings and things like that. Because I'm, you know, I love working with friends and I often do, but more often than not, it's people that like I've never met before that that I know through a friend or I've seen them perform or something like that. So it's kind of like this initial nerve-wracking like cold text or cold calling thing. But once that step is over, it's kind of smooth sailing. So once everybody's booked, I make the designs and plan out all my social media posts and the printed uh, materials. So now I'm just, uh, I'm flyering, I'm spreading the word, I'm posting on social media like almost every day until the day of the event. So yeah, I feel pretty good. Everything's organized. Today I had a meeting with um, someone who's going to do, well, this event specifically is centering like self-love, like all kinds of love. So self-love, platonic love, romantic love. I told all the performers and artists to like interpret that however they wanted. So to get outside of like the typical Valentine's party, and make sure everybody's comfortable. So I met with one of the people who's going to do a poetry reading and also like make an altar for self-love, a little installation there this morning. So yeah, I'm at the like tying up loose ends point now.
Yeah, and so you've been doing an event series called Heaven for about a year.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a little bit about just the concept, where you come up with the name of Heaven, and yeah.
Yeah, let me pull up. I think I have some pics of heaven. We can jump around a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. So, yeah, it is an event that, well, I moved back to Philly a couple of years ago. I left Germany and, yeah, came back to Philly. And I wasn't really planning on doing events here because it's just like a higher ceiling cost-wise in the US. And there's just like a lot more regulations and it's more of a challenge to do events here for sure. So I wasn't entirely sure that this was a place where I would continue that practice. I was like taking a little bit of a step back because obviously, the pandemic kind of threw a wrench in some of my event plans. So had a little bit of a pause for a while and worked more on my own like painting practice and some like mental health stuff. But yeah, just like with all of the policies against trans folks and drag and just like very specific, seeming like barbs toward queer people, I felt like it was necessary to start again and, create kind of a space I wanted to be in Philly. And there's so many amazing drag performers here that really run the spectrum of like the classic drag you would imagine where someone's, covering a Cher song and just and then, something that's more like performance art adjacent and more like gender bendy and um yeah, maybe involve some food or props or um yeah. So Heaven, I felt like was kind of born out of like the need for more of a safe space for like trans folks and lesbian folks, sapphic folks in Philly. We do have a gayborhood here, but I think a lot of it is really centering gay men. And when I started going to events again in Philly, I didn't feel like, oh, there's a space for me here, in these parties. So yeah, it's been really fun. I have been working with this venue um, called Ulana's, and it's really a beautiful space that they haven't updated since the 70s, as you can see from like the mirrored ceiling. But yeah, one side is a proper club, and the other side is kind of a lounge bar area. And upstairs in this area, there's like a conversation pit and a place where we can do art installations, like you see here.
Mhm.
Uh, And it's been really fun to, yeah, work with the community here, bring some artist friends down from New York to perform. Yeah, it's been really lovely to see kind of the scope of drag and DJs here in Philly, and it's had a really warm reception, and I feel very lucky for that. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, it's really nice in these images to see just like those first events in Philly in the 2010s and where you're at now. And I was wondering about the future and looking ahead. And do you have any goals or dreams or ideas for future events, or anything? What does that look like? Or
Yeah, I'm working on an application right now for a grad program in Berlin. And it's a program specifically for people who have kind of like an alternative art practice. And it kind of like bridges the gap between these sort of like DIY grassroots events and working with larger institutions like the Berlin Biennale or, museums and galleries there, who, I've had some interaction with, but, most of my experience is more like community based and grassroots based. So, I'm dreaming of that right now and I'm hoping I get in because I think it could be a really nice next step for my work and a way to just reach more people and make like queer art even more accessible.
yeah, awesome. And yeah, I'm thinking about how for the students, last week's topic was art and community, and this week we're
Mm.
talking about art and celebration, but I feel like they're so intertwined.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, do you have any thoughts on like um just what I mean, you've been talking about community a lot, but
Yeah.
community or celebration and what those words like mean to you and how you relate to them.
Yeah. Um, I feel like especially like in the queer scene, like the idea of community is like a big kind of buzzword that is thrown around a lot.
Mhm.
But I do think it's meaningful, especially when most of us don't feel a sense of like safety or encouragement in the family home. Like community is so important, and like finding that chosen family is so important. And um, especially if you're pursuing art, like you need to have people who are cheering you on and will give you an honest critique and want to collaborate with you and have their own projects going on too. I feel like that has always like spurred, um, me and like kept my motivation going. Like I feel like you have a really regular practice, and that's always been super inspiring for me. And I feel like you always have like an idea you're working on and an application or three you're working on, and it definitely like helps keep me motivated too. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, celebration I think is also just like really important for the queer and trans community right now. Um, like just containing, like making a container where we can feel free to like express ourselves and like wear exactly what we want to wear without fear and like move our bodies in the way we want to, or kiss somebody, like things that on the street day to day we have to kind of like second guess ourselves and our presentation, like depending on where we live or what we're doing that day. Like there's just like a place of freedom that I think most of us aren't really able to access, like going about our daily lives, that is really special, that can be found in queer nightlife and like intentional spaces. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Madeline.
Yeah.
One last question I have.
Mhm.
Right now, is there an artist or any particular work of art that you're finding influential to you right now?
Um, well, I'm working on my essay for my
Oh,
grad
yeah.
thing. So I guess I've been like reading more. But it was actually something you sent to me, Jose Esteban Munoz, Queering Utopia. Um, and I feel like that has been a concept since you sent it to me, like probably 5 years ago now. It's an essay that talks about this idea that I was kind of touching on with like finding joy in this container and with our chosen families. Um, and yeah, I was rereading it to kind of like get the juices flowing for my application. And it really rings true right now, especially. So I think it's pretty Googleable if you guys want to look it up.
I'll put a link below the video. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super inspiring. And, um, I think sometimes organization work, especially grassroots stuff, like can feel kind of thankless, but reading something like that, is really a good reminder that it's very important, especially when, these communities are under attack in the US and a lot of other places.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Madeline.
Yeah.
Did we get to see all of the images or did you
I
want
mean,
to?
I have some images that from other residencies I've done if you want me to go through those,
That
but
would be cool just to check
yeah,
out if you have the time.
sure, yeah. So, yeah, I have a compilation of some residency images where I added some images of like the places with the work I was making just to kind of show the, you know, inspiration. Mm. Yeah, so that's Leipzig, and there's a lot of these big um old like mill buildings and things like that, a lot of like brick and cobblestones, and it's a very green city. So I think I was really sorry if you can hear my chihuahua snoring. She's very asleep. Yeah, I found that like way of life really inspiring. There's me in Iceland. I did this month-long residency in Reykjavik in the summer. So the sun really never went down. And I think that's why I was using a lot of like whites and pinks. And I was also doing this series of photographing people in their bedrooms and, kind of using like automatic drawing and like an AbX way of thinking to like kind of show their personalities in each of the images. So yeah, there's another one of those right there. And there's the like midnight sun.
So cool.
And yeah, this is the residency that we kind of got to do together, which was so nice.
Yeah.
Uh, in Forks, Seattle,
North,
Seattle.
North Bend.
Oh, North Bend. Yeah, but
Oh, we
Forks
did go
is
to Forks another time. Yeah. Totally. Oh,
yeah, really beautiful studio space, and it like helped me plant the seed for these kind of like climate anxiety paintings I've been working on lately.
wow.
And yeah, we got to have a day where we all wrote together about our process a little bit and sat out in the sun and this view of, is that Mount Rainier?
No,
Different mountain.
it's another mountain. Yeah.
But this
I'll look
view
at
was
yeah, it's so pretty.
the view from the porch that we're sitting on right there, which was like so surreal to walk out to every day. Yeah. And then there's Quinn's work and a show that we put on together at Soil, the art collective that you're still part of, right?
Mhm.
And that was a really fun opportunity to like mix local Seattle artists and also bring some East Coast artists together. And I think I had a friend from Lebanon. We showed a video piece of his. Um, and this is some work I did in a residency last summer in Greece. Um, there was this like existing wheat paste on the side of the building, and I asked them if I could do kind of a collaboration. The artist meant for it to kind of disintegrate, and I thought that was kind of a cool base to work off of. And yeah, these are more of these climate anxiety paintings I did there too. And yeah, also very surreal and beautiful there. And I think you can see like definitely more different textures and color palette like emerging just from spending a month there. And yeah, this is back to heaven. Yeah.
Um, wow. Well, thank you so much for your time, Madeline. It was great to talk and
You.
yeah. Okay. Well, we'll end it here, yeah?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Bye.